It's the Tony Bennett song. I left my heart in San Francisco. This is for the gold rush. I think the year was 1970. I already was collecting a little bit of Photographica, but I hadn't found the wonder of the camera yet. A lot of things were happening in 1970 that made me feel now's the time. It's May 30th, 2012, and the time right now is 6:25 in the evening here in Hadlime, Connecticut. Let me start by throwing out a name. Wallace Bishop was my history teacher. I graduated from Northeastern University after the war with the help of the GI Bill of Rights. In fact, entirely with the help of the GI Bill of Rights after the Second World War. And he took a liking to me and used to have me come back to his little office, which was a cubicle, after class. I mean, it was so small that even the rats ran around hunchback in his little office. And he got me to be really interested in American history. He loved American history. And he got me to the point where I began to get this feel for American history, and particularly the development of the American character, which was not an 18th century development, but really a mid-19th century development. Now, at the time, I had not thought about photography, but had I would have realized that it was photography that documented, extra documented, the development of the American character that became so important to us as Americans. I felt that the hours I spent in his office with him talking about the manuscripts and the different things that gave me a look into the humanity of the 19th century were important, and I drew on them later in life. Another interesting thing, when cameras were only worth $5 or $10, people didn't bother taking them out of the attic. When cameras became worth 30, 40, 50, 100, somebody sold one for 300. All of a sudden, people were looking in their attics for anything that had a lens on it. And even if it was a lorgnette with a reading glass, whatever they found that had a lens, they brought down and put on their flea market table or wherever. And I think prices have to go up from real tag sale prices to the next level for the real beginning of opportunity. I have the logbook of Rayburn Phillips. He graduated from midshipman school in October of 1942 during the height of the war, the World War II, and he wrote a logbook, and it's amazing how far he traveled to find an item. I did quite a bit of amateur photography on a professional level. I've been doing some weddings to supplement my income, not even to supplement my income, just because I enjoyed shooting weddings. And I shot a wedding for somebody in Newport, Rhode Island. I presented the father of the bride with the potential proofs of what he could get in 4x5, pocket size 8x10. And I did the regular professional presentation. I had 2 different albums that he could choose from, and he couldn't believe that it was done that way. And then he said, "Okay, how much do I owe you?" And I said, "No, this is my gift for you." And he said, "Wait a minute, I'm going to go upstairs and get something from my father's collection in the attic." And he went up in the attic and he brought me down a mint Leica model one, Model A, and I put it up on the mantle. Within a few weeks, a fellow came into my office whose father had died. So he brought in a Leica M2 with 3 lenses, and there they were in the original boxes. I put that on the mantle right next to the early Leica, and I realized one was a modern camera, one was 35 years old or more, and they both used 35mm film, and it was interchangeable. You could use one or the other, and it began to fascinate me. Now, every time I walked by that mantle, my eyes would be drawn. They would be drawn to those 2 Leicas sitting side by side. Before I knew it, I was a Leica collector. It was unbelievable. I wanted to know more about them. I wanted to know what other models they made. I wanted to know who was famous that used Leicas. And before I knew it, I was buying everything one could buy, and that's how I began collecting what ended up as almost 5,000 cameras. Well, if the Leica was the first popular modern 35mm camera, what was the first popular camera? Very quickly I found out it was the Kodak of 1888 that made amateur photography what it is today. They come out with the idea that you press the button, we'll do the rest. By 1891, 3 years after they started it, they had a full line of cameras all the way up to 4x5, I think. And I learned all about those, and I love them. And naturally, it didn't take me very long to say, I wonder what came before the Kodak. And before long, I started going back into the real early 19th century and made a dive into the beginning of photography. Now, I did that by 1972, so that although I was buying photographs from the 50s and 60s, I didn't buy any cameras until the 70s. By 74, I think I had 7 Daguerreian-type cameras and maybe a dozen wet plate cameras, and I had the best private collection in America. I always say I had an epiphany, and I make a joke about it. I went to a lecture at the Eastman House, and Beaumont Newhall was talking. I think it was the Eastman House. It might have been at the Museum of Modern Art, but Beaumont Newhall was talking. And he was talking about photographs. The photographs that he was talking about brought a question from the audience about cameras. And his answer was, I'll paraphrase it, I think he said something like, I think collecting cameras is almost akin collecting paintbrushes rather than the paintings themselves. For me, that was an epiphany. The great man had said it. I listened, and I thought, a little differently, I thought, well, I've got the cameras, but maybe, just maybe I can buy photographs that enhance the camera and photographs that tell the story of photography, and then photographs that tell the story of that time. A lot of fields I went into were way, way out of the field that I chose to collect in. But by the time I tied many of these items together, people began to realize they told the whole story. It was three-dimensional. It fleshed out the subject. You believed that you understood the person better than just seeing them in a photograph. And I began to get a lot of satisfaction out of that. And people started coming here who wanted to hear the stories. When a photographer takes a photograph, he might take it head on. But then he may turn to the side and move it a little bit like that. He may turn to the other side and do it like that. But when he does, he's taking different aspects of the same subject. And that's what I like to do with the different disciplines. Take a different aspect of the same subject. I'm A man in his mid-80s, I've spent half of my life collecting photography in one form or another, and I just watched today the heart of the collection come downstairs from the attic, go into a truck, and get taken to Toronto, Canada. Now, a lot of people thought I'd be saddened by that. I'm not the least bit saddened. I'm happy that there's a resolution to this. I have spent all those years acquiring in a specific way to tell a story, and I think now it is going to reside in the hands of those who can categorize, analyze, systematize the items that they have taken. And I do believe that many of these items are iconic. Many of these items are one of a kind. Many of these items have a history of being passed through other people's hands and being recognized for what they are, and I do believe they're all going to the right place. I like the idea that they will be handled by professional librarians, professional people who do collection management, and nothing could please me more. So I'm a little tired because we've been running upstairs and downstairs, and we've had all kinds of people here today helping to get the packages and the boxes and the different items out and into the truck. But in the final analysis, it's on its way to Canada now. Godspeed. I do believe it's the right thing to do, and I do believe I did it for the right reasons.